Harry Styles, Casey Musgraves, Lin-Manuel Miranda have all come out to support Beto O'Rourke for governor. But will the majority of Texas voters decide he's the best choice? In tonight's Spriester session, we sit down in the closing days with Texas governor candidate Beto O'Rourke. So we're in the closing days of the campaign here. What is your closing argument to Texas voters?
After 8 years of Greg Abbott, we have rising inflation, higher taxes here in Texas than in California, homicides up 50%. We lead the nation in the number of rapes that have been committed. Teachers are leaving the classroom by the thousands. We now lead the nation in school shootings. I don't think he intended for all these things to happen, but it's clear that after 8 years, he's been unable to change policy enough to improve the lives of our fellow Texans. So this campaign, which is about paying teachers enough so they don't work a second or a third job, restoring the right to every woman to make her own decision about her own body, and prioritizing the lives of our kids over the interests of the NRA, is one that's going to bring Republicans, Democrats, and independents together for change in Texas.
I want to talk to you about it. A lot of people would think the abortion ruling helped your campaign. Do you see that as one of the major issues that this campaign's going to turn on?
I'll tell you, a big driver for turnout and for the excitement and enthusiasm of voters out there in Texas has to do with Greg Abbott signing the most extreme abortion bill in America. It begins at conception. There's no exception for rape or incest, and functionally and effectively, there's no exception for the life of the mother. We are seeing so many people come out to our events, first-time voters, older people who said they've never voted for a Democrat before in their lives, and they're going to for the first time right now. This has absolutely changed what is possible in the state of Texas, and much in the same way that Texas women won the right to privacy, to make these personal decisions on their own without government intervention 50 years ago in Roe versus Wade. I believe Texas women are going to win it back on election night, November 8th of this year.
Immigration, is that something the governor's tried to tie you to Joe Biden when it comes to immigration? How do you differ with the president when it comes to immigration?
We have failure in this country, and certainly here in Texas when it comes to immigration. And after 8 years of Greg Abbott, $4 billion spent on Operation Lone Star, we have not fewer encounters at our border, which the governor promised us. We actually have more. And that's because he's trafficking in stunts instead of focusing on solutions. And those solutions that I'm going to bring to the table as governor include a Texas-based guest worker program where we work with federal partners to make sure that anyone wanting to come and work a job here in this country that we cannot find the workforce for in Texas follows our laws, and that there is a safe, legal, orderly path to come here. I'm going to set up an office within the state government to help construction companies, agricultural businesses, restaurants, whoever's looking for employees and specifically immigrant labor, navigate the bureaucracy and defray some of the costs and expense involved to make sure that everyone does this the right way. We follow the law, and we have a safe, orderly, and legal immigration system here in Texas.
Uvalde in the San Antonio viewing area, it's in the KSAT viewing area. It's something that we've covered extensively. You have formed a relationship with the families of the victims in Uvalde. How did that start, and how would you describe it?
I came to Uvalde as soon as I heard about the tragedy there, and immediately was able to meet with some of the parents who had not even 24 hours before lost their children, and were still beginning to process what had just happened in their lives and to that community. I've stayed in touch with those families and in fact have been inspired by the leadership that they have demonstrated. We would all understand if they chose to never show their faces in public again and to not do anything given the fact that they can never bring back the children that they lost. But they're leading the fight to make sure that we take responsible action, like raising the age of purchase for an AR-15 to 21 years old, or having a red flag law on the books, or a universal background check. As you know, many of them traveled 5 hours to Edinburgh, even though they weren't allowed inside the debate hall, because they wanted to make sure that we don't lose sight or focus of the lives lost and the opportunity to prevent other loss of life going forward. Today, as you and I are speaking, marks 21 weeks since 24th of May, when 21 people were lost to us in Uvalde. But today also marks 21 days until this election is decided. And on the ballot before every Texan is the lives of our children and the ability to prioritize them over the interests of the NRA. That's what this campaign is about. And when we win and when we're able to take sensible, common ground steps to prioritize the lives of our kids, we'll be thanking those parents in Uvalde who've shown such extraordinary courage and leadership.
Have you ever had a relationship with a group like that? And it's my understanding that they approached you saying, let us campaign with you and for you. Am I correct in that?
I reached out to so many of these parents. I'll give you an example. I reached out to Lexi's mom and I said, is there anything I can do for you? And she said, no, there's absolutely nothing you can do. But I want to know what I can do to make sure this never happens to another family and no mother ever feels the loss that I am experiencing right now. So I know they're not doing this for me. I know they're not doing it for the Democratic Party. They're doing this for other families and other children and other classrooms across the state. This governor has done not a single thing to make it any less likely that any other child meets that fate. But in the face of his inaction, these parents are stepping up. And they remind me very much of the people in El Paso that I've gotten to know after 23 of my neighbors were killed on the 3rd of August, 2019. They have been at the forefront of ensuring that not only do we not forget that massacre, but that we take the steps necessary to prevent it from happening again in the future. There are so many courageous people out there, and we need to make sure that they are able to lead on the issues that they know best and prevent this kind of tragedy from taking place going forward in Texas.
Is that how Uvalde heals? And I wanted to ask you that from your perspective in El Paso, the place you call home. How do you get past what happened but not forget what happened?
You know, I'll tell you as an El Pasoan, and certainly knowing so many of the surviving members who lost a loved one on that day in 2019, this is never something you get over. It may be something that you get through, but the pain and the loss will always be with you. And I know that from listening and working with these families in Uvalde over the last 21 weeks. But the sense of purpose that they have right now as they focus on protecting and saving the lives of other children is really extraordinary. And I have to think that in some way is part of the healing process for them. And I don't know, and we should ask them, they can speak for themselves, but I don't know that this is ever something that you completely heal from. But I cannot tell you how grateful I am that they are willing to step out there. And I know from watching them and seeing the look on their face how painful this is to talk about this experience, to talk about what they have lost, to talk about their children, and yet they're willing to do it to make sure that this doesn't happen again in Texas.
I want to switch gears now and talk about this event with Lin-Manuel. Harry Styles had a Beto for governor sticker on his guitar. This is a race that has garnered certainly national attention. The debate the other night was trending nationwide. How do you think that plays among Texas voters, and what does that say about this race?
You know, we're running against a sitting governor who started this race with $50 million more in the bank than we had. He's using all the powers of his incumbency. And against that is all of us, 95,000 and counting volunteers who are knocking on literally millions of doors across the state of Texas. A campaign and candidate literally traveling everywhere. There's no county too small, too rural, too Republican for me to show up. And same for big cities like Houston, where we are right now, or San Antonio, where we were 2 days ago. To have these people who speak to and reach and entertain our fellow Texans, whether it's the Chicks, whether it's Casey Musgraves, whether it is Willie Nelson, or today Lin-Manuel Miranda, who's coming in to make sure that we all realize this moment of truth for our country, a time for our democracy really to come through. I'm just so grateful that they're leveraging their connections to make sure that we reach more Texas voters, and we just got to make the most of it, and we got to win.
Final question for you. Biggest misconception about Beto O'Rourke?
You know, I wouldn't even know what it is, and I'm loath to raise it for fear of reinforcing it. But, you know, I'll tell you this. At a time of extremism in American politics and false equivalencies and both sidisms, we have a governor right now who's at the extreme fringe of his party, and I don't think that's reflective of Texas. The total abortion ban, the grid failure, the leading the nation in school shootings. What we want is to return to the center. And when you look at my record, whether as a city council member in El Paso, as a small business owner in that community, as a Democrat in a Republican majority Congress for 6 years, the only way I've ever been able to do anything of significance is to reach across the aisle or listen to and work with those who may not always agree with me and may not come to the same conclusions on the issues that we care about. So I'll work with anyone, anytime, anywhere to advance the agenda of Texas. And I just want to make sure everyone knows that whether you vote for me or not, I am for you and will serve you as governor, and it will be the greatest honor of my life to be able to deliver for the people of Texas.
Congressman, I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.